So if you're wondering if this is the end of your career, or if you haven't yet started your career and you're in education and you're just about to embark and you're thinking, man, is this over before it's begun? This is the video for you. What I wanted to talk to you about now before we get into it is just to go over what we'll be talking about, because it's a long video and I don't want you to get lost in wondering where this is going. So this video is like a starter pack for artistic survival. So this will give you a starting point to be then going from and doing your own research, but it will give you some good ideas. Each point requires its own video, so it's a long video, but it could be even longer if I went into great detail. So at certain points, I'm going to go into each of these points in the future, make its own video to expand upon it. But this should give you a good starting point. And this is designed to just start you off and give you hope. That's the main thing. Is if right now you're thinking, well, what the hell do I do? Because the reason why I'm making this video is because of people saying, you know, well, if the industry is like gone, what do I do? So this is just to give you some hope. The contents that we will be covering are in section 1, where we'll be talking about ideas for making money in the shorter term, a few things that you could sell as an artist, and how to just start to generate your own income slowly. And then in the second section we'll be going into the longer term picture, which is where it gets exciting. So like the more you put in, the better it gets in the longer term, so that's kind of cool. In section 3 we'll be going over social media, just covering the basics again, and in section 4 we'll just go over some final points and ideas onto how to get success in those areas. So I hope you enjoy the video. Please leave a comment, let's have a discussion about things, and I'll read all my comments and we'll reply to them. And so yeah, let's get into it. Today, digital artists are in the biggest crisis they have ever been in their lives, or a long time at least. The games industry has pretty much collapsed in terms of jobs, and we're all terrified and looking at an absolute job apocalypse. So I wanted to make this video to address the things that you can do to survive in 2024 and beyond. So I've got a lot of ideas as to what we could do as artists to survive. Some in the shorter term, but mainly in the sort of longer term. The issue is right now the games industry has left us for dead, and there are many people unemployed, so the job market is heavily skewed against us, and everybody right now is looking for work and not finding it, applying for jobs, not getting it, and everything is going crazy. And at this point now, the most important time for you to be promoting and taking that split from the job-seeking world into the world of being an independent artist is essential, that we start making that transition immediately today to ensure our survival going into the future. So in today's video, we're going to cover such topics as options for making money online through selling things. We'll be looking at what you can do early on, and then what you can, and the sort of longer term picture of what you can do later on. So let's get into that. So I'm making this video in a bit of a hurry because I'm low on time right now, but I've wanted to get this video out and just not fuss too much with the presentation, because it's essential that people find out this information, figure out how to survive, and what we can do as artists to, like I say, survive this horrible job apocalypse that we are in right now. So one of the things that springs to mind first is, for this duration, well, first of all, before we go into that, let's look at the state that the games industry is in right now. Remember, this is not just the games industry that we are getting our work from. We have the film industry, that's not doing too bad lately. The animation industry, maybe. But then we have advertising, that's usually doing okay. So we've got other industries. It's just that the games industry occupied quite a large chunk of that. And when the games industry goes away and it has effectively disappeared, then it displaces all these jobs, and it means that only a few people are getting jobs right now. And I myself have been unemployed I've been freelance, but not really freelancing since last September. So that's October, November, December, January, February, 6 months now. And so I'm looking into ways in which I can pivot from that. So with the games industry being off the table for the foreseeable, I mean, that could take, I don't even know if it will recover in a way that we can recognize it, because as I mentioned in another video, we have whatever happens, let's say, okay, so 2023 is when it began, then in 2024, where we are now, the collapse is continuing. Some people thought in 2023 it would sort of get to a point where it would slow down and then gently recover and we'd all be cozy again, but it's not happening. In fact, the forecasts that I was seeing early this year for the projected job losses have actually increased now that we're in March. So the closures are coming, more job losses are coming. So I want people to get their head out of this idea that the games industry is, or the job applying world is the only world that we have, and we've just got to sit around and just think about opening up a burger stall or something. So what we're going to go into is various ways to make some money online, and but what springs to mind first is this duration that we're going to go into now, this next few years, is going to be very difficult, and it's not going to recover anytime soon. We're not going to get to the end of 2024 and go, oh god, that was a difficult year and a half. It's going to be years of this, and then AI is coming in, and the big players, the big guys at the top, EA, Blizzard, they're all just going to double down on AI, and I think EA has even admitted as such. So we've got some crazy times coming up where we will need to step away from expecting and begging for a job to save us. So the reason why I'm talking about this chunk of time that's coming up now, in fact, it's not a chunk of time. This might be it for the foreseeable. It might be the end right now, because like I say, by the time the jobs come back, AI will be there. So we need to start right now moving away in a different direction. And so the reason why I'm saying that is because we need to start thinking right now about practical things. Where should I be living? I myself, there's some boxes in the background there. I was to point the camera that way, there'd be boxes everywhere. I'm moving back in with my mother, me and my wife, back in with my mother to save some money. And then we're going to be moving after that to somewhere cheaper to save money. If you have any way at all that you can move in with family, move in with your parents, shared accommodation, something like that, do it. Don't just think, well, I'll burn through my savings. I saw somebody online who'd come up to they'd been saving, they got a job in the animation industry, this was, I think. They saved for a year or two, they saved everything that they could because they felt like something was coming. And now they are 1 year into unemployment and they've burnt through all their savings. And I think they probably live somewhere expensive like LA or something. So I don't know how realistic it is to suggest this. If you have a partner who has an income, you may be relying on that solely for a while. If you have a family member that you can live with for a while, I want to say a while, it might be a while, but you have to cut down on your big bills right now and find a way to make that work. So this is like just the practical steps. Let us get into the actual nuts and bolts of what it is that you can be doing to make money in 2024 as a digital artist. So we have got a list here that I've made, a list of options that you can look at, which is selling 3D models or kits on ArtStation, maybe Gumroad. Like usually, I mean, if you're looking on ArtStation, there's usually things that you need which aren't really on there. There's lots of stuff that I look for on ArtStation and I'm like, no, it's not really got that, or maybe it's got it but it's not quite the thing that you want. So look on ArtStation for maybe underrepresented things. The one thing that stands out for me with kits and things like Kit Bash is all of the buildings in these Kit Bash sets, they're all fully completed, and when I get client work, they don't want to present a completed building, they want you to make the building. So I think more modular sort of kits would would do well on ArtStation. Walls and things like that, more smaller components that you could build into one big thing. And ArtStation is a reasonably good marketplace, actually. If you put something on Gumroad by itself, you probably wouldn't get many takers, but ArtStation sort of promotes your stuff, so that's pretty good. Now all of this will tie into social media, because if you're selling stuff and you're growing your social media, then you'll be able to advertise your products on your social media. Later on we'll talk more about social media as well. That's another key aspect. So we have selling 3D models, we have selling tutorials. You could definitely do well on selling tutorials. A lot of this is somewhat dependent on having a following, and you need to be, right now there are so many people, I speak to digital artists all the time who don't have they haven't really put any effort into social media, so they don't have much of a following. So that will help with all of this, but again, we'll talk about social media more later. So selling tutorials can be good, and I put a note here, like, if you're good enough, if you're a good artist and you have, if you want to, you can't just really sell tutorial if you're not a very good artist. However, it's not just artistic ability that sells tutorials, it's technical ability. So you could have some Blender insights on how to construct. I mean, I'm not very good with the intricacies of Blender, so I'm often looking for tutorials. It could be how to set up shaders, it could be geometry nodes, it could be hard surface modeling techniques. So there's all kinds of technical stuff that you could sell as tutorials. You could sell, the other thing is stock photo packs on ArtStation, because again, ArtStation is a good marketplace. There's many thousands of people. Sometimes I don't know quite what the actual number is. Some numbers say that there are millions per month who frequent ArtStation, but I don't know how many users that is, but there's a lot of people. So selling photo packs on ArtStation, my tip there is to make them useful. I see a lot of photo packs on ArtStation where somebody's gone to like Scotland and they've taken a picture of the floor and they're taking a picture of a woolly cow, because they assume that the artist using that reference might just want some woolly cows in there. But it means that when you're browsing through these thumbnails, you're just sort of like deleting half of the pictures because they're useless. A close-up of a flower or something like that. Think about like when you're doing environment art and stuff, you want a nice, often fairly flat angle, looking forward and sometimes looking up, but usually all the angles are sort of down with a high horizon. So make the stock photos useful, and obviously you'll want to be decent at photography, ideally, so that the sky isn't blowing out and all that kind of stuff. Hopefully, some of you might be quite good with photography and can do that. You could also sell 3D scans, so you can make your own scans with even a fairly basic camera and some simple software. The only thing is, it can take a while to process the 3D scans, so it could take probably half a day to process a scan, and it could take longer if you were scanning like a building or something like that. So bear in mind that if you went out and for a week, and say because you got the time it takes to go and take the scans, so say you went out for one long day and then you came back, you processed 2 models per day for a week, so you ended up with say 8 to 10 models. Make sure that that solid week that you put into making those and selling those is going to pay off, because it's a solid amount of time. But then again, you could do that and then you could be building a library over time, and if you were to do that regularly, you could end up having quite a decent library of things that people can buy online. And then the earlier stuff that you have for sale then gets resold, as your popularity grows. So that could be a business model. The next thing is selling prints on Etsy, which is something that I do, and it can be tricky, Etsy. It used to be that you could make not reasonable, I don't know. There's a lot of expenses with Etsy. You have to find a print store. So some of your fees go to Etsy, some of your fees go to the print store. But it's if you know, for me, I made a store, and I didn't for a while. I set it up for the first couple of years. I was uploading lots of art, and then I just left it. So one of those years, I was uploading nothing, but sales were just trickling in. So it was completely passive income, and I think I made I don't know, maybe a couple of grand in that year, but it was a couple of grand that I didn't have to do anything for. And if I was working at it and promoting it, maybe it would have done better. And I'm going to talk later on about how to make the most of that store and branding and that kind of thing. And then the next thing that I was thinking of was you could partner up with somebody who's a Python developer, because if you're using Blender, you know exactly what you need from Blender. So you may not be the best artist in the world, but you know the shortcomings of Blender. So you could team up with a Python developer and and sort of say, look, you know, I'm reasonably competent in my industry, and we need these things. And if we partner up 50-50, then we could create a really cool Blender add-on that we know that people really need, and then, you know, sell that. I'm not sure about how to develop an add-on for Blender. So you'd have to like assume that the Python guy can tell you like how difficult that is and how much it costs. The final idea that I have here is YouTube ad revenue. Now that can be pretty lucrative in the long term if you can build up an audience, because it's paying you like on a daily basis. Something is coming in. It's not necessarily, I don't know if it's being paid every day, maybe it pays at the end of the month, but the money is coming in steady. And when I did some research, I was quite surprised by, I'd written it off at first thinking, it's just not really worth it. But if you can figure out a way to get a channel and make it popular, then the ad revenue can add up, and it can be reasonably decent if you can get a decent following. So if you're putting out regular content, that's the key thing, is it's not necessarily passive, because you have to be generating decent content, and that's something that I've been experimenting with lately, and it is very, very challenging. But I feel like it's a long-term game that could pay off. Okay, so let's go into the sorts of things that you can do. We'll talk about social media in a little bit, but once you gain a following from your social media efforts, in the longer term game, you can be using Patreon, and Patreon can do pretty good. So if you could imagine, you know, you were doing YouTube and you were getting some income from that, and then you were doing Patreon, then maybe some of the work that you were doing for YouTube you can repurpose for Patreon and elaborate on it, to sort of keep it all in one. So if you're on Patreon, you could be, let's say you had 100 subscribers, $5 each, that's $500 a month. But again, that is more of a later in the game kind of thing. Then we've got selling NFTs, which is some people don't like, but I've seen some artists do create, and obviously we know about the big artists, but there was a guy recently I was looking at, he did like his own, he funded his own movie, his own animated movie through NFTs. He made about, I think it was close to $1 million in NFT sales. So as you progress, that's something that you could be looking forward to. Then once you get a little bit more popular, you can perhaps release a Kickstarter. And so with Kickstarter, you kind of have to have an audience, but like as you've been building up momentum over time, the projects that you've been slowly feeding in to your Instagram and all that kind of stuff, people start to take notice of those, and then you can release your first product. Ideally, it would be wise to make that a digital product, because I've seen some very successful Kickstarter people talking about how they released a printed product, and it's a nightmare to go through the book making and the distribution and all that kind of stuff. So if you could make a digital download, that would be great. And I would imagine that if you didn't, and you went through the printed book form or whatever it is. You could end up breaking even on the first one if you're not careful, but that maybe could set you up for the second one where you've already built your audience, built the trust, that kind of thing. Then the other thing that you can do when you get more popularity is do limited edition print work. So if you have like the larger followings, so you could do a limited edition print run of say 50 prints at $60 each, and that's $3,000. And if you could print those at home and fulfill them at home, that might only cost you, a fraction of that to print. And that's something that if you did those 2 or 3 times a year alongside Patreon, YouTube ad revenue, I'm building a picture here where you're slowly starting to be able to sustain yourself without relying entirely on client work. There are different gradations of the income, from the the short term, where it'll be obviously small, to the mid term. But then if you progress even further than this to the longer term, you're talking like with a decent YouTube following, decent Patreon following, and then NFTs, this starts to really build up. And I'm talking about a longer term game here, longer strategy to get you stability. And with all of those tendrils going out, no industry thing is going to come along and just chop it off like it is now, where you have one tendril going to the games industry and it's like dead. So this may seem like a lot of long-term, slightly tricky things to do, but you're able to survive as an artist, hopefully, and not have to think about completely throwing it all away because the games industry collapsed. And then the other thing that we all have probably forgotten about right now is, so you're doing all this, you're doing your social media, which we'll get onto in a bit. You still will get a little bit of client work, so it's not as though we're talking like a world without clients. And of course, as you grow in popularity, you're more likely to attract clients. So the client work might become a minor role in all this, but it's still not going to be insignificant. And it just means that previously you were relying only on that. So you might post game apocalypse, you might only make $10,000 or pounds or whatever it is in a year, but now all of a sudden that 10 grand is just an addition to the other money that you're making on all the other channels, so it's not too bad. Previously, I know when I was working before the COVID boom, I was doing really terrible, and I was only working for literally about 4 weeks in a whole year, and outside of that I was just working on my portfolio, which has its own merits. But if I'd have been working hard on my social game, then I could have been having income outside of the client work instead of just sitting around and just working on my portfolio and uploading it to ArtStation and uploading the odd sketch to Instagram. So there we have like a pretty decent list of things that you want to be getting on with, but this all ties in to social media. So let's talk about that. So social media, the big 4 or 5, Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn maybe for the industry folks, TikTok maybe, and Facebook also maybe. So Facebook is really only good if you have like thousands of friends, but it still is a good backup for those who might have missed your content. You can remind them that you just had a post here and there, but it's a tricky one. You'd have to try to really get in those Facebook friends. You can have a page that people follow, but I don't think it's very good in my experience. TikTok is tricky, very tricky for an artist. You have to be very visual, very virally focused on something that grabs your attention immediately. You can't just have like a video of you doing a painting or something like that, or even a really cool animation. When you think about TikTok, I want you to think about having 0 followers. And I myself have uploaded a few videos to TikTok and I have 2 followers. And it is not easy. It is not the same thing. You don't just go, oh, I'll upload this to Instagram, I'll upload the same thing to TikTok. It is a different beast, and I've yet to figure it out. But it is a tool that you could use. LinkedIn, it can also, if you're selling products like 3D models and tutorials and things like that, you can be building up something on LinkedIn. That does take a while. You have to be regularly connecting with people, accepting connections, regularly posting, and then to slowly see that following come in. YouTube, in terms of YouTube tips, you really must be uploading. It's obvious to say uploading regularly, but I see a lot of YouTube channels where artists upload once every month or 2. And I just watched a video today actually that was really inspiring. It was talking about how you have to upload, you have to have a schedule and stick to that schedule regardless of whether you're successful or unsuccessful. And that's an interesting thing to get your head around. You're not thinking about, my goal is to get so many subscribers, because then you could get there and just be like, oh, no, I don't need to do anything, and then all of a sudden your business will drop down like this. So just think about doing it, and it's the doing it that's important. Not, you have to divorce yourself from what you're going to get out of it, and just do it every single week. And the consistency is the thing that pays off, as opposed to hoping that you get a certain number of blah blah blah. So what else about YouTube? It's, you have to study it is the thing. There are lots of videos out there that go in depth in YouTube. Don't just stick a video out there and stick a crappy title and a crappy thumbnail. And, it just doesn't work that way. It has to be treated like, you have to imagine that you're a social media agency, and somebody's come to you and said, like, how can I get more followers? How can I grow? And you have to go deep and really make it work as a business, and look up Mr. Beast and all the big like viral people and figure out what's going on. Now, as an artist, here's an interesting thing. This is a separate topic. As an artist, we are thinking only within the sphere, I'm talking within YouTube parameters now, we're thinking only within the sphere of being an artist and doing digital painting and stuff like that. But if you're an artist, you could make visual art. And here's the thing. Right now we're all stuck in the ArtStation bubble. You could say that there are 3 bubbles. This is in itself a video into itself. There are 3 bubbles. There is the ArtStation bubble, where you have this size of an audience. You're maybe trying to sell things to them. Then you have the digital painting and digital art world, which is much bigger. You could appeal to those. And then you have the entertainment world, which is massive. So if you can take your art and forget about artists as your audience and think about the general public, this is a huge thing. So now we'll park that for 1 minute and go on to Instagram. So I recently passed my 20,000 follower threshold on Instagram, and 8,000 or so of those followers came within the last year, and the last 3 months, and that was through a few posts going viral that I'd already posted a few times before that hadn't really gone viral. and they were consistently well received posts. And it made me think that, well, basically what's happening is you've got art for artists and you've got art for the general public, and we kind of want to please the other artists because we want to get a pat on the back from our fellow artists. But that's keeping a lot of us in a small bubble. When you find that if you keep posting on Instagram, and this is my tip for that, is post regularly on Instagram, try different things, and notice the strange posts that seem to just take off, that you had no idea, that only was a little sketch that I did. Notice the patterns there and pay close attention to what is happening, because somewhere in there is your ticket to get out of the bubble, and you could follow that thread and go, right, well, where's this going? And that's when you grow, you get bigger you can make something of that could go on YouTube and could make you bigger and bigger and bigger. And that's a huge tip on how to grow your brand, your Instagram followers, your social media followers. Find that thing that people are telling you, because you sort of resist it. You go, oh, I don't want them to like that. I want to make this other thing. But if you want to grow big in the beginning, you have to focus on what is catching that little flame, and later on you can go back and start to bring in the stuff that you personally want to do. A little bit more about Instagram. I saw an artist I talked to an artist on Facebook recently who was saying, and they were a good artist, they were a solid good artist. Usually I'm not having these conversations with good artists. You're talking Disney kind of level, consistently been in the game for a while. And he was saying, I suck on Instagram, and it's crazy to think that. And I was like, what do you mean? Because his art is great. And I looked on his Instagram, and there was pictures of his cat in his feed. So there are, and I always assume that people know these things, but if you want to get good on Instagram, you have to only put pictures of your art. Maybe if you have 100,000 followers, you're allowed to put in pictures of you and your cat. At that stage, people really like you, but I personally, if I'm going through Instagram and I see, sometimes I'll have a picture of a random person at an event, and I'm like, what's this? What? And I go through their feed and I realize the artist that I followed is just showing holiday snaps, and I'm like, unfollow. I can't be bothered with seeing that in my feed. I've only got so many people that I want to be able to see. So keep it within the art world. Make sure, this is key, and I didn't realize this for a long time, that if you make an image, it may not really work well on Instagram. You might have to massage it a bit, because you want it to be big. You might have this long letterbox sort of wide aspect landscape. It's not really going to work on Instagram unless there's something in that landscape that you can blow up to be portrait, make it big, bold, so when people swipe in, they're not going, what is that? And don't worry too much about having picture after picture after picture. If it's a good piece, if anything, it means that people can just breathe in that one piece and just go, yep, like it, as opposed to what else is there? Oh, right. So yeah, check out my Instagram and scroll down to the anything with snow on it. For some reason that gets the thousands of likes. So for me, I'm thinking, okay, maybe I should do more snow paintings. I like snow paintings, Some people might think, and you'd be forgiven for thinking this. Oh, you're just following what people want instead of what you want. But, there's always something in what people want that you like. I mean, we all as artists love John Singer Sargent and Richard Schmid and all those greats, and they paint pictures of fields and trees, and we just go, oh man, that's so nice. So it's because it's universal. We all like those things, and there's something in our art that everybody likes. But you do have to be a bit careful if all you do, this is another key Instagram point, If all you do is like dark, gritty sci-fi, you're going to be really narrow, and you'll just be appealing to industry people, and it's a tricky thing. I don't know what to fully advise there, because I can't just say don't do that if it's your passion. But I think the mindset for people who are doing that is, oh, look at me, I'm doing sci-fi and in the sci-fi industry, and the sci-fi people are going to hire me for a job, at least try and take it to a level that everybody could see it and like it somehow. I don't know what that could be. Make it maybe more colourful, do something interesting with it. You can have sci-fi, but do something that it's not like if people don't like it, then that just means that it's extra cool, and if people do like it, then it's just commercial. There is stuff that could be incredible, that's completely unique and completely weird, that somehow captures people's attention. So that's my Instagram tips in a nutshell. I could do separate videos for each of these, really, and go in a deep dive, but I'm just trying to give an overarching point. So some final points. Consider animation. That's pretty big, whether it be 3D. Unreal is a faster way to produce, like, your moving camera animations and things like that. It's way faster than Blender, way faster. But you could also try 2D animation. You could create some interesting content that way. As an artist, you could really entertain people, and again get into that entertainment category. So again, get out of the ArtStation bubble. You can make some money there, because if you're selling directly to ArtStation users by selling models and selling tutorials within that can be okay. But I'm talking about your artistic expression. Get out of ArtStation for just reaching an audience with your paintings and things like that. And be commercial at first. Sell out a little bit at first, grow your audience, find the common ground. You have a circle here, stuff that you like doing, a circle here, stuff that the general public like, and there's got to be some crossover, and focus on that crossover. And have a consistent theme or vibe. This is an interesting one. So it's tricky if you have a picture of a bunny rabbit and a picture of a sci-fi spaceship and a picture of historical medieval wars, then fantasy over here with Lord of the Rings, and then a painting of some rocks over here, and it just goes all over the place, and you have 2D there and then 3D there. It can be tricky for somebody to lock down, because what people want to do when they follow you, they want to follow a vein, and they'd be saying to themselves subconsciously, you're just good at doing stuff. Is that strong? Is that a strong enough appeal? Probably not. So you have to have a thing, and it might feel like narrowing down, but check this. Here's an example that I have. So say you thought, okay, I really like pirate art, which I do. It might seem like a really narrow vein if you were to only do pirate art. But then think about this. You've got moody nighttime scenes. You've got hot, sunny daytime scenes. You've got stormy scenes. You've got interior buildings, exterior buildings, ships, characters, landscapes. And then you got, you build that up, and then you have your Patreon with early access images, work in progress images, early access tutorials, longer form tutorials on your Patreon, a short form tutorial on your YouTube channel, and then you're posting those little snippets to Instagram Reels, YouTube Shorts, little bits here and there, and it's all just building, and hopefully I'm building a picture here of what this whole ecosystem could look like over time. So yeah, I guess that's it. I just basically wanted to build a picture of what the future could hold, independent of the games industry. Imagine that. But the thing is, it has to start today. You have to be consistent. Right now, a lot of us are out of work, and we have the time to be doing this. Don't just think, oh, I'll work on my portfolio. Think about working on your brand, and start start your YouTube channel and start promoting yourself and keep the promotions going out, keep the daily updates, get on Instagram daily, and just keep posting and posting. And if you run out of material, then go to old material and like repurpose that, find old paintings that you never quite finished and finish those, and eventually you can just keep rolling that out and tweaking it if you don't happen to have a fresh piece to upload that day. So yeah, let me know in the comments if you have any questions, and I'll see if I can answer them. But let's try to keep this conversation going and start building a immunity to the games industry, which is currently trying to eat our souls. Peace out.